Greetings, yogis. Welcome back to the Satsang, Sadhana, and Sangha series. I'm going to talk about this pillar of sadhana in this video, and I want to review some of what I feel are important things to keep into consideration when we are building and refining our daily practice. The daily practice refers to the daily practice that we do that contributes to our spiritual growth is what is known as sadhana. And this word, um, one of the translations is the way of attainment. And why I feel like it's important to remember this translation, the way of attainment, is there's a hidden meaning in that I feel is important to contemplate. And it's the question is, well, what are we trying to attain? Number one, and then what are the steps to attaining that thing? And so in the path of yoga, the process of yoga, the science of yoga is one in which we are reconnecting to our true essence and learning to live a life that is in alignment with our true essence. And this is a life that is authentic, that is fully expressed, that is filled with the manifestations of the divine virtues, the things like the yamas and the niyamas that we can think about when it comes to yogic living, but also these qualities that are um, the fullest realization of our potential, right? Our generosity, our compassion, our brilliance, our genius, our creativity, our inspiration. These are all expressions of the divine being that is inside all of us. And it is the ego and is the limited personality structure and the impurities in the psyche that obstruct the light of this divinity from coming through in its purity. And so we engage in practices that help to clean and cleanse and purify the mind and the body of all of these obstructions so that this light can move through us. And so the first step is, of course, the question that we ask ourselves, is this something that I really want? Is this something that inspires me, that I can aspire to on my path? Because if I feel inspired to reach my full potential, then I anchor that in my heart. That is the fire that begins the journey. And then I just keep remembering that and I keep feeding that fire. And by feeding that fire, I start to engage in authentic spiritual practices, disciplines that transform me in my life. And so that is what is known as sadhana. And just a couple things to think about that I feel are important. Sadhana is a systematic endeavor. Okay. And so with our daily practice, we are learning how to find and discover in ourselves where is the light coming in and what is obstructing the light from coming in. And so this is why one of the things I say is it's more important to learn how to practice and also to some degree why to practice as opposed to what to practice. Now the what takes care of itself when we learn how and have an anchor of intention of why. Then we start to follow the inspiration and we start to follow the light to a certain degree. We start to pay attention to, okay, what are the practices that are actually bringing light into my container? Because if I can learn to flood myself with light, even if it's only for a small amount of time every day, then the flooding myself of that light is what starts to clean all of the impurities and it starts to reconstruct my way of viewing the world and my way of living to be one that is in alignment with this light and intelligence, this cosmic intelligence. And so according to the yogis, the light comes in through the crown of the head. And we can see this in babies. Babies have a soft suture here in the crown and it starts to close as as that intelligence and that light comes in and comes into the form of their body, the suture closes, but there's still a portal of entry for this light. It comes in, and there's actually a whole system of what is known as the nadis, the rivers. Nadi means river. The nadi system is the energetic network inside of the organism that distributes the light through the body. And so with systematic practice, we start to learn and pay attention to how does this light flow in, and then how does it flow through my body. And so when I'm engaging in things like asanas and pranayamas, these practices, these techniques, and mudras, bandhas, kriyas, these are all part of that system we know as hatha yoga, is the science of learning about how this light is flowing, how the energy is circulating in the organism, and enhancing and optimizing its circulation to such a degree that we start to balance the two there's two primary movements of that light energy, which is the solar and the lunar channels, the Ida and the Pingala nadis, as you may remember, which correspond to the left and the right nostril, and also the hemispheres of the brain. But we learn to balance these two opposing or opposite yet complementary forces. And in doing so, that energy starts to feed into the central channel, which is known as the Sushumna Nadi. And this is the pillar of light. And so over time with our practice and learning how to, again, there's a skillfulness in this. It's not so much about forcing, but there's a certain attentiveness, alertness, and awareness that we're cultivating in the daily repetition of the same things over and over and over and over again, because we learn to pay attention to subtler and subtler levels of what's actually happening, what's taking place. And so that skillfulness is something that we learn over time, that then the light that comes in starts to flow more, it becomes more accessible and more available. And so that is a sign of us working through the denser layers into more subtle layers. And so I just wanted to share that, because this is something to think about as we engage in our practice. This is something, it's a long process, right? This is a daily cultivation over years, decades of just really being inspired by this idea of having a personal, I call it spiritual hygiene practice, right? Like sadhana is a spiritual hygiene practice, just like we brush our teeth, take showers, eat food that's good for us. We also engage in practices that are good for us, that bring us into balance, that bring us into a state of joy and contentedness and satisfaction. And in doing so, over time, as we start to build a relationship to this light and increase its circulation in us, this light starts to inform how we live our life, and it starts to guide us. And this light's already informing us and guiding us. It's just a matter of building and enhancing our relationship with it so that we can learn to trust more in it, surrender more to it, and allow ourselves to be moved by it, moved by the very impulse of life that's deep inside of us and is inspiring us to live in our most aligned way, in our most realized way, right? Realizing our true potential. And so that's what I wanted to share with you today about sadhana. I hope this inspires you, and I will see you soon for the next video. Om Namah Shivaya.